Today, I'm going to create a microtonal scale. Warning: this video contains brief periods of high-pitched, potentially annoying frequencies, not including my voice. If you are sensitive to certain high-pitched frequencies, I would suggest muting the video at the following points. The chromatic scale consists of 12 notes. The major scale and a vast majority of other widely used musical scales use only 7 out of those 12 notes. For example, A major uses A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, and G sharp. The other notes are non-diatonic, or not part of the A major scale. Those are the ones in between. Recently I was thinking about that, how only 7 out of 12 notes are used in the major scale. As a percentage, that's 58 1/3%, or 58.333 going on forever percent. I know that there are other scales that don't have 7 notes in them. Pentatonic scales only have 5 notes, and blues scales can use up to 9 notes. I started to wonder what scales would be like if they were built with frequencies and interval ratios based on percentages of other scales. If you start with a string at equilibrium, meaning that it's motionless and undisturbed, when you disturb it, or in this case pluck it, the string moves up and down frequently, with a certain frequency. As soon as the string goes up from the starting position, then down to below the starting position, then back to the original starting position, it has completed 1 cycle. If it completes 440 of these cycles in 1 second, then the string is vibrating at a frequency of 440 Hz. Hertz is simply a measure of cycles per second. You could say that the string is frequently completing cycles, and it just so happens that it took 1 second for it to frequently complete 440 of those cycles. The space between 2 notes is an interval. The space between A and B flat on a piano is a minor second. Between A and B is a major second, and between A and E is a perfect fifth. The second and fifth refer to the number of notes away from A each of the other notes are, B flat, B, and E. B is 2 keys away, so that's a second, or a major second as they call it. Since B flat is between A and B is a major second away, the interval between A and B flat is called a minor second. Now the ratios of these intervals are found by taking the frequency in hertz of the higher note and dividing it by the frequency in hertz of the lower note. A above middle C on the piano keyboard is 440 Hz, and the next E up on the piano is 659.26 Hz. Taking 659.26 and dividing that by 440, you get 1.498, which rounds to 1.5, or 1.5. As a ratio, this is represented as 3 to 2. That's the interval ratio of our perfect fifth. For the others, A to B is a major second, and the interval ratio is 9 to 8, and A to B flat is a minor second, with the interval ratio of 16 to 15. For the sake of this video, I'm going to use 7-note scales, or heptatonic scales, as my basis. I wanted to briefly mention this, although it's been mentioned in a previous video of mine. There are 100 cents between 2 notes on a keyboard, between C and C sharp, between A and B flat, between E and F, there are 100 cents. And since there are 12 notes per octave, at least in the Western mindset, there are 1200 cents per octave. I know that heptatonic scales use 7 out of 12 notes, which is 58.333%. I use that as a constant for scales consisting of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 notes on this chart. For the pentatonic scale, just as 7 is 58.333% of 12, 5 is 58.333% of 8.5715. I also know that an octave contains 1200 cents. If I divide 1200 by 8.5715 to determine the size of the interval between each note of this manufactured microtonal scale, I get a gap of 139.9988 cents between every single note in this scale. What I'm creating is an equal tempered scale. The major scale is an equal tempered scale. Most of the time. There are hundreds of tuning systems and algorithms that have been created over the centuries. Throughout the history of music, there have been countless arguments about how to tune dissonance. In music, dissonance is what happens when you play a combination of 2 or more notes whose sound waves and frequencies clash with one another, and some people sense discomfort from the combination of these frequencies. Sevish, or Sevish, is an electronic music producer who works with microtones. He combines microtonality with electronica, drum and bass, breakbeat, and ambient electronic music. He has published this super helpful workshop online, linked in the description, which I used to calculate the frequencies of the notes of each scale that I wanted to create. All I had to do was type the interval gap in the scale data box, and the program did the rest for me. Let's go back to the pentatonic scale example. 5 out of 8.5715 notes is equivalent to 58.333%. And remember that I got the number 58.333% out of the major scale and how it uses 7 notes out of 12 chromatic notes. Also remembering that an octave contains 1200 cents, I divided 1200 cents by 8.5715 notes to get 139.9988 cent gaps as the interval between each note of this scale. That doesn't fit evenly into 1200 cents, so I had to manipulate the numbers a bit. I used this program's approximation tool to help me out, but I'm picky, so that wasn't enough for me. Sure, it did a good job, but it changed too many numbers, for my liking at least. I wanted a way to maintain as many of the same values as possible, so instead of compressing or stretching the intervals to get a nice clean ratio, I decided to take the frequency of the final note and round it to 880 Hz. In the A major scale, where we start from the A above middle C and end 1 octave above that, the A above middle C has a frequency of precisely 440 Hz. To find the frequency of the A, which is 1 octave above that, all you have to do is multiply this value by 2 to get 880 Hz. This works for every heptatonic scale, not just starting on A. If I start from, like, the F sharp with a frequency of 185 Hz and double that frequency, I get the frequency of the next F sharp above it 1 octave away, which is about 370 Hz. With my manufactured microtonal scale and rounding the final frequency value to 880, remember because it starts on A, everything except for the last note remains the same, so everything is still evenly spaced out. The only difference is that now it can behave more like the major scale and other heptatonic scales and have a perfect octave. I went through the same process for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 note scales. And now, it's music time. I'll introduce you to each scale one at a time. Enjoy! This is the moment you've all been waiting for. I've combined all of these into something that I want to pretentiously call the standard macro percentonal heptatonic-based scale. This is a megalith of a scale, with all 74 notes jammed into the span of 1 octave between A and A. Here it is, for your listening pleasure. Keep in mind that the scales featured in this video are only based on heptatonic scales, and I've yet to start working on or releasing the microtonal scales resulting from percentages of, say, pentatonic scales and octatonic scales and so on and so forth. That's going to be for a follow-up video.